example?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we just need to do a multi-day example, all right? So again, you guys don't mind if I abbreviate credit card with CC? Right?
Okay.
Remember that the interest, quote unquote, the finance charge that a credit card charges you is always calculated through simple interest, okay? It really is. That's the cool part about credit cards, is that honestly they can't do anything other than simple interest. And on top of it, it has to use exact interest, not ordinary days or banker's days, right? I mean, we've started as a nation to start regulating the credit card industry a little bit, not great yet, but we're still getting there. At least it's reasonable, okay? So, reasonable, of course, if you use it wisely, right? The whole point of a credit card is that it's supposed to be an interest-free loan until, that month where bad stuff happens, right? And then hopefully you don't let a balance carry over more than a couple of months, right? That's the idea, to save the most amount of money. All right, so the key to this is remembering that P in this calculation is the average daily balance. And so one of the things that your credit card company must do for you every billing cycle is tell you what your average daily balance was, even if they don't charge you any interest for that. So if you pay your credit card bill in full, they should still report to you what your average daily balance was last billing period, okay? It's actually something they have to do. If they don't do it, you can start suing them. They're all really good about it, though, so don't worry about it. Anyways, so we have to be able to figure out the average daily balance. Now, we did a simple example where we just made one charge, right? And that was relatively straightforward because we were just counting the days and saying, okay, for each day, we have a certain amount of money that we borrowed. Write that number down. And then the next day, do the same thing. The next day, do the same thing. However many days in your billing cycle, that's how many numbers you have. Average them. Boom. Done. Okay? And I sort of made it a pain last time, so bear with me. I will try and make it a little bit cleaner this time. But we're also going to have a more realistic credit card statement. Okay? So, state and then you can't quite spell abbreviating it, right? Or misspelling it, whatever. So, let's suppose that this is your credit card statement, right? So let's suppose that it is a 30-day cycle that starts on, let's make it relatively simple. Let's suppose it started on March 3rd, okay, of this year, for simplicity's sake. So this is your credit card statement for what you would say March, okay? Note, folks, if it's a 30-day cycle and it started on March 3rd, there are going to be some days in April that are on this March statement, okay? Because 30 days plus March 3rd, right, that gets you past the end of March and into a couple of days of April. That's part of the game, okay? Realize that that's always happening on every credit card statement that you get, all right? Now, when you get your credit card statement, folks, some of them look a little bit more or less information-wise, but for the most part, they've got three main things that come at you, okay? First thing they're going to give you on the credit card statement is the date. Please note, folks, that technically the date is the date that credit was sent to the credit card company. It's not necessarily the day that you made the purchase, okay? People like to think that the credit card companies get the credit card information right away as soon as you swipe it. Nah. It's the business owner's job to collect all of the credit card information that they have for a given day and send it to the credit card company. Whenever that happens, that's the date that gets stamped on your credit card, okay? And some companies will only do it every other day instead of every day.
So the start on, is that like when you open your credit card from that?
This is
consecutively?
Yeah, they always go consecutively. So in theory, it may have started years ago.
Yeah.
But this is the prior cycle ended on March 2nd, so the next one starts on March 3rd.
So does the start on change as?
Yes, every billing cycle changes, right? So this period will be March 3rd. Next month will be April,
Yeah.
2nd, and then maybe that one will be the one coming after. It'll be like May 5th if they send it to like a whole 32 or 33 day cycle. And again, it's the credit card company's power to determine how many days are in your billing cycle. They don't have to make it 30 days. It can be anywhere between 25 and 33, and they can change it at will. All right, literally. Okay, that's part of the small print. You sign it when you agree to take the credit card. That you agree for them to be able to change the number of days in your billing cycle per cycle at will, change it between 25 and 33. Most of the times, folks, it stays at 30 days. Most of the time.
Does that change your due date?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are also a bunch of rules on how much time they have to give you after they cut the cycle in order to actually pay and get interest free. That's also part of their regulation. They have to give you at least 2 weeks. Again, some of them, when they mail it, takes them a while to mail it.
That can be,
Yeah,
not everyone gets paid right then and there.
Of course. Note, after they tell you what date it happened, they will give you a small description, and then at the end, they will give you an amount. Okay, that's the minimum amount of information they can give you. Other credit cards may give you a little bit more information. They may have a running total column off to the side. Most of them don't, though. Again, they tend not to want to give you more information. For the most part, credit card companies want to give you as little information as possible. If they give you more, great. Wonderful. But realize this is the minimum. All right? So let's see. Let's assume that on March 6th, yes, that should be basically the first purchase on every credit card statement, right? And that will be nice, folks. All of my dollar amounts are going to be multiples of 10 because then the adding is easier, right? So $30, okay? In reality, it will be, $23.44, right? And you'll have to deal with the pennies and blah, blah, blah. In this class, I will be nice to you and you won't, just so that you know, okay? All right, so then, let's see, a few days go by, and on, let's say, the 8th, what do I need? Food it is. Did I shop or did my wife shop?
Oh
boy.
Wife shop? Okay. And it's $150. If I go shopping, it's only $50. I don't mind generic. My wife does. Tends to be why she does most of the grocery shopping. Because when I come home with food that all just says bread on it, she's like, "What?" You get the picture. All right, so let's see. A few more days go by. Let's suppose a couple of days go by. Let's suppose it goes up to like the 17th. And what did I need on the 17th?
Gas again.
Gas again. Okay. This time it was the Subaru and not the Toyota, so a little bit more. Big tank.
Better car.
Yeah, for the snow, but
Oh,
the snow's done, right?
yeah.
All right, then let's suppose that on the 18th, let's see, what did we need?
You had to build movie tickets.
Movie, okay. What is that, like $30? And then let's do something towards the end of the month. Let's say on the 28th of the month. What did we need?
A date night.
Hmm?
A date night.
Date night, so
Like
dinner.
Dinner.
Dinner. $100. The drinks are on next month, so. All right. So again, not too deep of a credit card statement, right? Just 5 charges, okay? Now, how many numbers do I need to calculate my average daily balance, folks?
5. Wait, how many? What?
Average daily balance. How many days?
30.
30. Why?
Oh,
30-day cycle.
It's a 30-day cycle. So to figure out the average daily balance, you're going to need 30 numbers, right? You need to get me the amount of money I borrowed on March 3rd, March 4th, March 5th, March 6th, yada, 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 bing, bang, boom, right? So, technically, folks, Here is a shortcut for how to calculate these, okay? Make a little table that keeps track of the amount and the number of days that amount repeated. So we kind of did this on the last one, right? Remember where we had 19 zeros and 11 300s? We're just going to do the same thing. There's just going to be more numbers, okay? And we're going to keep it organized by putting it in the table. All right? Okay, so how much money, folks, was I borrowing on March 3rd?
None.
None. Let's assume that I paid my statement off last month. Okay, so yes, my first number is technically a 0. That's March 3rd. Now, how many days or how many zeros are there going to be?
5. 2.
I heard 3, I heard 5, I heard 2.
5.
When does my billing cycle start?
3 days.
Or 0.
2. 3.
I was going
Okay.
back to the 8th.
I was.
It'll start when I get a drink.
I make my first purchase on the 6th. Okay?
The cycle starts on the 3rd.
Starts on the 3rd. So how many days is it from the 3rd to the 6th? You include the 3rd, right? So it's the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. On the 6th,
That has a different balance.
that has a different balance, so it's just 3 days, okay? So there are 3 days of this from March 3rd to the 5th, right? And note that that looks like it should be 2 days, but those are inclusive, right? 3rd to the 5th is 3rd, 4th, and 5th, inclusive, 3 days, okay? Now, what's my next number?
$30.
$30, because that's when I finally bought some gas. Okay, now, how many times does that number repeat?
2 days.
2 days. Why 2?
The 6th and the 7th. And the
6th.
8th is a new balance.
Exactly, because you made a new purchase on the 8th, that's when that number will change, so it's 2 days, 6th and the 7th. Awesome. Now you can start to see the pattern, right, guys? So what's going to be my next number? Now be careful here.
150.
What was that? Why is it 180, Demetria?
Because it's got the $30.
Have I paid the $30 off yet?
No.
No, so I'm borrowing another $150. So please note, this is one of the things that you need to do while you're calculating the average daily balance is add while you're going. Okay? So make sure that you get 180 for the next number, right? Alright, now here's the fun one. How many days does 180 repeat?
10.
I've heard 10 and I've heard 9. Do I hear 8? Do I hear 11? Do I hear 12? Who's going to buy this for 12? I'll sell it to you for 12. 12, 12. Going once, 12, back to 11. Okay, we're at 11. 11, 11, back to 10. 10, 9, 10, 9, 9, 10. Who wants this for 9? Who wants this for 10?
10.
9.
Let's count them, folks.
7.
8,
Oh, we don't count the 7.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and on the 17th, new number. 9. Okay, and note, folks, what is 17 minus 8?
9.
Damn.
Do you think that that works every time?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yes, it does, right? What was 8 minus 6? 2.
Damn.
What was 6 minus 3?
3.
3.
Why didn't we start like
Because you had to believe me first. And so you have to use your fingers and toes first, and then you can graduate past your fingers and toes to real numbers.
There you go.
that? Okay.
Have you ever seen them teach math in first grade?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's how they started, right? Well, you've got 4 and you've got 3, and so they'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And that's how they'll start it, right? They'll say add them all up, and then they'll say, okay, well, you know that you've got 4 here because this is 4. Well, what comes after 4? And then they'll go 5, 6, 7, and they'll. This is how you learn, right? You all do it visually to start with. Then you see, oh crap, this is easy.
Walk before you
That's right. All right, so we agree that it's 9 days from March 8th to the 16th, right? Now, what's my next number?
220.
220. Good, because you now know. You've seen the pattern. You're adding while you go. Keep adding. No, folks, I haven't had a break since about 8 o'clock this morning, so I'm a little loopy at the moment. Bear with us. All right.
That's only one day.
All right. Now, how many? Only one day, right? Because what's 18 minus 17?
1.
Or, yeah, you guys got it, right? All right. So what's my next number?
250.
250.
Aren't you guys glad like most statements just give it to you? And you don't have to do this
Do
anymore?
you actually trust your credit card company?
Well, I don't have it, so.
I don't trust mine, man. I check every other month or so, right? Because I know those little bastards are liars. I know that, right? Granted, I don't pay, right? I mean, I pay my statement every month, so I don't pay any interest, but I still don't trust them. And I'll calculate it. And the reason why I calculate is because if they ever get it wrong,
You're gonna be like, let me teach you. Can you Skype me?
oh no, I'm going to call a lawyer, and we are going to have a class action lawsuit, and you guys are all going to get rich with me.
Cool.
Right? So you'll just have to take out the credit card in whatever credit card company I have, and then we can all be in a class action suit together. They always settle those for an equal amount to everybody in the suit, and it'll be somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000.
What if we don't?
We're letting you run.
No. As long as you have a credit card, you qualify. That's the whole point. That you have to agree to be in my class action lawsuit.
As long as you win.
Yeah. Just DM us.
Okay. So 250, folks. How many times does that number repeat? Now that you've seen it.
10.
Yes, because what's 28 minus 18?
And
10. You could count them out if you want, right? I mean, perfectly okay. Do realize that on the test, folks, there will be one of them that has like 12 or 15 days, and if you have to use your fingers, I will be okay with you guys taking your shoes and socks off so that you can go to your toes.
Can't bend that though.
But you can stretch your toes, right? Alright, so anyways, 10 days, because this is the 18th to the 27th. Officially, it's only to the 27th. The 28th starts the next day. Now, what's our next number?
350.
350. And note, folks, that's the last one. And now, here's where it gets funky for students. What's the last day of the billing cycle? Okay?
30 days.
Hmm?
30
30
days.
days. So how many days is it? You tell me.
Because 30 is
25.
Ooh, what was that?
25.
What's
If you
25?
add up all the days together, gives you 25. And if it's a 30-day billing cycle, and you got 5 days left.
There you go. Bingo, folks. That's how you get the last day. 5 days in the billing cycle because it's a 30-day billing cycle, right? If this is 25 days, you don't have to know when the last day of the billing cycle is. Technically, it's the 2nd of April. Technically,
I didn't know.
right? And so from the 28th to the 2nd of April is 5 days. Or you could say, look, I've used 25 days. I know this is my last one, right? Because I didn't make any other charges. So therefore, this has to give me 30 days in my billing cycle. Just calculate. And you're all good to go. Okay? Nice work, Allison.
And you make the next test nothing but that?
This is 15% of the next test.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Alright. So, now the question, of course, is, here are my numbers. I now have 30 of them. How do I average these 30 numbers? And it sure doesn't look like 30 numbers, so I'm getting a little nervous.
Really?
Why do I multiply?
Because, so you multiply the amount by the days, which, that's the stories I got.
Okay,
I remember doing that.
Remember what this table means, right? The 3 days means how many zeros are there?
Yeah.
3 zeros,
So the
right?
amount of time that
Uh-huh.
30.
The 2 days says that the 30 is repeated twice.
Yeah.
Right? So all you're doing is writing the numbers in a much more condensed format. Instead of writing 30 down twice, you just write it down once and say, oh, by the way, there were 2 of them. Instead of writing down 189 times, so all you do to start getting the sum of all of your numbers is multiply across, right? Please don't screw up 0 times 3. You'll be surprised how many times people tell me that that's 3 instead of 0.
How'd they get to college?
Well, they hit the plus button instead of the times button on the calculator and don't think about it, right? What's 30 times 2?
16,
What's 9 times 180?
getting there. 16, 20.
What's 1 times 220?
20.
10. Hopefully you didn't use your calculator. 250 times 10. Again, hopefully you didn't use your calculator. And last but not least, 350 times 5. 1750. Those are the numbers that you add up, okay, folks? The standard student mistake is to forget to multiply and just add these numbers up on the left. Please don't do that, okay? So, when you added them up, what did we get?
6,100.
6150.
6150?
Yeah.
Okay, I buy it. Now, what do I do with that number?
You divide it by
Divided by 3.
the
Awesome.
30 days.
So your average daily balance is going to be that total 6150 divided by your 30 days. 205.
And that's the average daily balance.
That's your average daily balance. If you didn't pay this credit card statement in full, this is the number you would use to calculate your finance charge.
You just add
Note, how much do you owe on this credit card?
Too much.
Well,
350, right?
350, right? I mean, that's how much you owe. But note, the average amount that you owed was only 205. Okay? And so that's the number you'd use to calculate your finance charge. Okay? Not too bad? Alright, so you tried, ready for a slightly more complicated one?
Not particularly.
Yes, you are. Come on, you guys are ready for it now. Alright, so. Alright, so, and this time let's actually calculate the finance charge just for fun, okay? So, suppose I have a
Just for
19...
fun, guys.
Huh?
Just for fun.
Right, don't you like fun?
When you turn around, he's like,
Isn't it? It's just for fun. You guys like fun, right?
yeah, we love fun.
Okay, good. So let's assume that this credit card is a 19.9% APR credit card. Okay. So I slipped 1 month, and so they jacked it to the max.
So you ruin it for the rest of us?
No, it's just for me, right? So 19.9% card. The cycle starts on April 2nd. And is 31 days. Okay, so for whatever reason they decided in April to make it a 31-day cycle.
Are all like cards like APR?
Yes.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if we could.
And let's suppose this time that we carried over a balance. I carried over a $100 balance. So, again, I didn't pay my bill in full, and it worked out that the finance charge that they added made the actual balance $100 even, just so that life is easier for us. You're welcome. All right, so here's our credit card statement, all right? Need a few more rows this time because there's going to be more funky crap going on.
Of course there would be.
Now, note, some credit card companies will actually give you a line item with the carryover balance. So they'll actually say, on April 2nd, you have $100 balance. Okay? Some of them will do that, not all of them. All right? Most of them that I have, they actually don't carry the balance over. They just make it a statement at the beginning of the credit card wording that says there is this much to start with. Okay? So, we'll leave it at that. All right? So, let's suppose that on April 6th, it was gas, because that's what we always buy first, and it was $40. It was a Subaru again. Alright, and then let's suppose that on April 10th, I made a payment. Now payments, folks, what's the difference between a payment and a charge?
They get added on.
They get removed from your balance.
Yeah, I assume that's what you meant, right?
Anyway, that's what you mean.
Charge versus debit, right? Credit versus debit in the system, right? This is crediting the system, it's adding to it. The payment is going to be a debit, it's actually going to subtract from the total. So let's put in some a payment amount. Note that some credit card companies will put payments in a different color. Others will put it with a negative sign in it. Some of them will actually put it in parentheses too. Again, it depends on which credit card. I even had a credit card once that put the minus sign at the end, which was really weird, but that's how they did it. So just realize it can be any of those things, right? It could be just a red number, it could just be a minus number, whatever. Just realize that it's a subtraction, right? It's a debit, not a credit. All right. So after I make that payment, well, maybe a couple more days go by. Well, let's make a few more. On the 16th, what do we need to do on April 16th? Okay, food. Was it me or my wife?
Your wife.
It was my wife, so back to $150.
Oh,
Okay.
well, whatever.
All right, but let's suppose that on the same day, on the 16th, I was also shopping. So she sent me to one store, she went to the other. So,
Let's say you bought liquor,
yeah.
alcohol,
Well, we gotta we'll call it fluids.
fluids.
I don't condone drinking in this classroom.
Oh, okay.
I just talk about it. And let's suppose I needed to buy $100 of fluids.
Okay.
Well, it was also the day after tax day, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, all right, and then let's suppose that on the 20th, had to go back to gas.
Ooh, a lot of driving.
Yeah.
Madison to Janesville every day.
Ooh.
And then last but not least, on the 27th, whatever. What?
We're gonna do another payment.
Should we do another payment?
I don't know. Let's just make it interesting, I guess.
I was trying to make it I don't want to make it too interesting.
Oh, okay.
Let's just go back with something simple. Let's
Okay.
go with like clothes.
Fair enough.
$50, whatever. So I bought something. Because women can't buy anything that's less than $50, right? I mean, that's how your clothing works. I've gone to a women's clothing store. Everything is $200. It is. I mean, it's ridiculous. I would feel cheated if I were a woman, right? Because I can go to a store and look at, a pair of slacks. It's like $29, right? I go to a same pair of pants for a woman. I'm like, they're no different. They're $59. I'm like, what the? How would? Whatever. You women get cheated. That's all I have to say. Sorry.
Because we do most of the clothes shopping, so then they make more money by it.
Yeah, it's sad that my wife does most of my clothes shopping.
Oops,
Because if I buy anything, you know what ends up happening?
they fall apart.
No, she makes me take it back because it doesn't look right. Because I don't know how it's supposed to look, apparently. So, well, whatever.
Maybe make a class for us guys, I guess.
There should be a one-week seminar on how to buy clothes or something, right? I would take it. Okay, so how do we figure out the ADV of this and the finance charge? Okay. So calculate ADV and finance charge. Okay, so here we go. Make yourself a table. Tables are wonderful, handy tools, folks. Amount and days. What's my opening amount this time, folks?
$100.
$100 because I didn't pay off last billing cycle's due amount. Bummer. So I'm at $100. How many days on that $100?
4 out of 4.
4. Why?
6 minus 2.
6 minus 2. My first charge is on the 6th. The credit card statement starts on the 2nd. 6 minus 2 is 4. You can do it by hand if you want, right? 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Either way, you're going to get 4. 4 days. 2nd to the 5th. next number?
140.
140. Good. Remember you add. How many days?
4.
4 more days. Why?
6 to the 10th.
6 to the 10th, right? And I will say it's 6 to the 9th. All right, now be careful. What's my next number?
90.
90. Good, because now since it's a payment, since it's a debit instead of a credit to the system, you are going to subtract that 50 instead of adding the 50. We now go down to 90. And how many days does the 90 repeat?
6.
6. Alright, now here's where it gets a little scary. What's my next number?
340.
240 or 340?
They're both on the same day, so it's 340.
Okay, so here's where you can kind of make a choice, right? So one of the things that you can do is realize that since they're the same day, you don't want to create a whole new row for them, okay? So you can just say, hey, those are the same day, therefore add them together. That one day was $250 worth of stuff. 250 plus 90 gives you 340. But there, folks, please make sure you have to be careful and make sure that when you have 2 days that are the same, you treat them accordingly, okay? Just be careful. How many days does that last?
4.
4, because it goes from the 16th to the 20th. Or officially the 19th. What's my next number?
370.
370. Add the $30. How many days does that one last?
7.
7. And then last but not least, what's my final number?
420.
420. And what's my final number of days?
5.
Why is it 5?
Because there's 25 when you add all those numbers for days up.
And what's my number of days in the billing cycle?
6.
Oh, so it's 6.
There's 31 days in the cycle.
Good. Be careful. Make sure you check and see how many days are in the billing cycle. Do not assume 30 or 31 for that matter. Alright, so again, here's your table that represents your numbers. How are you going to calculate your average from that?
Multiply across.
Multiply across, that gives you your sums. Divide by your total, that gives you your average. 400, 560, 540, 1360, 2590, and 2520. Make sure I'm doing that right, guys. And 16, 25, 27, 6, 16, 19, 24, 29, 7, 9, 79, 70. Is that what you guys got?
Yep.
What do I do with that number?
Divided by 31.
Awesome. Don't forget to divide by 31 because that's the number of days in your cycle. So what's my ADV?
257.10.
10 cents.
If you round.
Round correctly. And now, given that that is your average daily balance, in theory, if I didn't pay this credit card statement in full, what would be my finance charge? Again, this is interest, folks, so it's good old PRT. And remember, this is the whole reason you calculated the ADB, right? Instead of using that 420 number, which is how much you owe, you're going to use the 257.10. That's P. What's R again?
19.9%.
How am I going to write that?
0.199.
Okay, good. A couple of people on the test forgot to move the decimal point. And how many days were in this billing cycle?
31.
So how many years are in the billing cycle? 31 over 365. Remember that time must always be in years, so that 31 days gets converted by dividing by 365. And yes, credit card companies must use 365. They cannot use 360. Okay? And then it's just a calculator problem. $4.35. So if you do not make this payment in full, folks, you'll get dinged an extra $4.35. Again, technically that will get posted at the start of the next month.
So is that like the interest?
Yes.
Okay.
That's literally the interest charge that they will issue.
Finance charge.
Yeah, sorry. I can't say the word interest. You can only say finance. Interest is swearing.
Well, I mean, just like, general.
It's a
So-
general number, yes.
If
But
you had, you know how some credit cards, if you have like a charge to have that credit card, you know how like
like a yearly fee?
yeah, you know how they break it down per month, so that
Most of them just charge it once every 12 months.
my mom's charges her every month.
Every month?
Yeah, it's like $3 and change, and if she doesn't pay it, then it gets interest on top of it. So or financing charges. So would that, if that's how they did it, would that get added to that finance charge, or is that a separate charge?
It should be a separate charge entry form on the actual credit card. So they'll say monthly fee $3.38, and then it'll say finance charge, and it literally will say the phrase finance charge. It won't say interest. It'll say finance charge, and it'll be like whatever, $4.35, whatever it is. And note, folks, that if I paid this bill, let's suppose that I sent in a check for this, but I wrote the check for $419 instead of $420.
Oops, you could charge for that.
They
one
want
hour.
their dollar.
They want their $1. They can charge you the full month's interest
Finance charge.
as long as you don't pay in full, right? So even though in theory, you only owe $1 moving the next month, they're going to ding you for the full $4.35 because you didn't pay in full. Okay? So that's the way it goes. Basically, if you don't pay this completely in full, then they get to say you borrowed that money for a whole month. Therefore, you owe us $4.35, even though, in theory, you really only didn't pay them $1 worth of it. Okay? Even if it was a penny, doesn't matter, right? So if your statement says $422.37 and you write it for 36 cents,
That seems so little
doesn't matter. Those are the rules.
for such like a big thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, the key is realizing that you really only borrowed the money for a month, right? So you only paid a 1/12 of a year's worth of interest, and that's why the number is relatively small. Okay? So, I know there's at least one homework assignment that asks you to do something like this, so not bad? Huh? And that's chapter 14. All is good. Note, folks, there's only 8 problems on the homework. Right. So this is why chapter 14 and 15 come together, because there just aren't that many problems. So, I mean, a bunch of them have multiple parts, but they're relatively straightforward multiple parts. So it looks like it's the same size homework assignment because it goes like 3 pages long, but it's not that many. So, okay. All right. So, oh, there's an 18 extra credit. Yeah. All right, so chapter 15. Long-term loans, folks. Mortgages. How many of you are paying a mortgage right now? Just one of us? A couple of us?
Oh, I'm young. I need to get my life together.
I'm 40 and I don't have mine together either.
Okay, well that's good, that's good. I mean, mortgages are potentially a part of life. The way I like to look at it is that mortgages or rent, does it really make a difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not
Really?
anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm paying
That was
someone
one of the
else's mortgage.
stipulations of getting back together with my husband. We had to buy a house instead of rent it. I
Well,
paid
problem is now we don't
$200
get it.
less a month.
You pay $200 less a month and you're buying a house, right?
That's right.
And the cool part about it is that when you're done paying your rent for the next, quote unquote rent for the next 30 years, what do you have at the end of it?
I had my house.
You have a house. If you rent for 30 years, folks,
You had
pay your
no land.
rent for 30 years, what do you got at the end of 30
A really
years?
appreciative landlord.
No responsibilities because we don't have to pay for that $15,000 roof.
That's true. That's true. That's sort of that's the give and take of having a mortgage versus renting, right? When the toilet gets backed up, is it your problem? No, right? You just call the super and go out for dinner, right? I mean,
But now that with the new tax laws, you can't claim your mortgage.
hey,
Oh, you can?
it's just that there's such a big, huge initial. What they changed is that the minimum write-off amount used to be like $6,000, and now it's doubled it to 12. And so it used to be if you had $8,000 worth of interest you paid in a year, that was $2,000 more you could write off on your taxes because your individual write-off is only $6,000. Now, if your individual write-off is $12,000 and you pay $8,000 in taxes, you would rather take the individual write-off of $12,000, which is more than the $8,000, and so.
There's no point
I should have kept my mouth shut.
You just got to jump there, girl.
Well, that's how mortgages are working right now, right? Is that because the individual, write-off amount on our taxes has gone up, less people will actually do an itemized tax form, because you aren't likely to get past the individual write-off amount, right? The only reason you actually write off your taxes and fill out all of the itemized forms is if you're going to get more than what the government gives you at the beginning of the year anyways. And it used to be a relatively small number, like 4, 8, or 12, something like that. And it was real easy to have interest payments that were more than that, right? And then you would add in all of your donations and all the other crap that you do, right? But now that they've raised that a lot, then it's not as. It was an interesting game that they played to make it look like they were
Helping.
lowering taxes when they really didn't. For us, anyways. I mean, if you're wealthy, they lowered taxes, right? Because the highest tax bracket went down like 3%, right? So if you were making $14 million, you saved a whole shit ton of money because of the lower tax bracket, right? But our highest tax bracket was probably went from 25% down to like 24.5%. We saved 0.5%. And they dicked us with the mortgage write-off. So,
So good thing we rent, guys.
yeah, renting right now looks really nice.
From my mom.
Hey, look at,
Bucks a
always look
month.
at the brighter side of things.
All right, now the cool thing about mortgages, folks, is that honestly, they are exactly the same as Chapter 14's. Okay? It's just that the numbers are much scarier. Okay? Because instead of borrowing money for 60 months, you're borrowing it for 30 years, which is 360 months. Okay? So, note, you are still going to use the tables.
That's not too bad. That's like 4 car payments consecutively.
Forever?
For 30-some years.
Hopefully you won't ever need a car while you're paying for your own. So note that, folks, instead of using the top half of the last page on your tables, guess which half we use now? The bottom half where it says amortization chart for a mortgage as opposed to the amortization chart for a loan. Right? So according to the book, a loan is a short-term, 5-year or less loan, and a mortgage is a long-term loan, 10 years or more. And note, folks, that this rule, 10 years, for a mortgage is actually valid. A bank cannot give you a mortgage unless it is at least a 10-year loan. Okay? And interest rates are wildly fluctuant when you don't have a mortgage. Mortgages are actually relatively tight to specific numbers that are being posted by the Federal Reserve Bank. Those are actual standard numbers that you work with. If you're getting smaller term loans, less than 10 years, interest rates can vary immensely based on a whole ton of different factors. But mortgages tend to be tied pretty tight. Okay? So, anyways, here's how it goes. Let's just dive right in and buy a house.
So what if you like put down more than like conventional 20% and you hold like very little on a mortgage, but you still have to stretch that out over 10 years?
At least, yeah.
Oh.
Yep. When you refi, you have to refinance it to at least 10 years. If you do less than 10 years, then it's not a mortgage anymore. You have to do a whole ton of different paperwork.
So you're screwed either way.
Well, yeah, but it's just a different way, right? A different department screws you, that's all. Usually they don't wear as nice a tie. but it's not
Variety. We
more.
like variety.
They wear the bow ties.
All right, so folks, where are we going to buy our house? Are we going to buy it in Janesville or Madison?
Janesville, Madison.
Okay, so we buy a, what, $180,000 house?
Sure.
Okay. It's a nicer house in Janesville, right? Now, how much are we going to put down?
20%.
20%. Why do we put 20% down?
This is the minimum that you have to put down on the house.
Well,
Really?
technically you don't have to,
Well, I
but
suppose unless you're a first time home.
unless you want to pay private mortgage insurance, right? Have you guys heard of PMI?
Yep.
Yeah, if you're buying a house and you do not have 20% down, you actually have to ensure the bank doesn't go broke while you're paying your mortgage, and so you have to insure the bank on your mortgage, and so you own 20%. Yeah, it's true, technically. All right? So we're going to put 20% down and finance the rest for 30 years, classic loan, at, what do you want? Are we good with money or bad?
We were medium.
Medium? Okay. Let's say 6%. Well, let's say 6.5%.
Why the half? I feel like you're setting this up.
What? Because 6% is not on the table.
Oh, it sure isn't. Why?
Don't ask me. Whatever.
Because if you go to 5.5%, they just feel it's not worth it to charge you 6, so they need to charge you 6.5%
No.
if they go up.
Technically, folks, 6% is in the chapter. Inside of chapter 15, there is a 6% table. Technically, that's where it is. And there is actually a homework assignment question that asks you to compute a 6% mortgage. Please look inside the chapter for the 6% table. Okay? It's there. All right? For whatever reason, because it's there, this one they don't put in there. Basically, what they did is they took 6% out and put 3.5% in. Again, whatever. I don't.
Or just extend the graphs and add everything.
You got to talk to the publisher at that stage, and he's a dick, so don't bother. He's a teacher up in Madison. I actually talked to him a lot until I asked him questions on the book. I'm like, could you change this in the next section? And he'd be like, why would I do that? Whatever. Anyways, okay, so folks, answer the standard questions we did back in chapter 14. So, all of them are the same, folks. It's just the numbers are going to be much more pukey, okay? So how much money did we put down on this house?
20%.
Yeah, how much is that? Note the number, folks. This is the kind of money you need to have stored up to buy a house so that you don't have to pay PMI, okay? You really need a large chunk of money in order to start buying a house. And honestly, folks, the banks have become much more anal about looking at your bank records, too. Yeah, I mean, if you go to buy a house and all of a sudden you've got $35,000 and you got it and you can't explain it, they will actually go searching. And
Yeah.
if it turns out that it's a gift from your parents, they won't accept it as a down payment amount. You literally have to make the money yourself in some way, shape, or form.
And if it's a settlement, they like freeze your bank account for X amount of like months. They did that to mine.
Until they can verify everything. They don't want you sneaking around with the money, right?
5 years, or
Yeah.
5 months.
Because they really, really, really want to make you pay private mortgage insurance because it saves them having to do it themselves, right? I mean, that's why. But
So drug dealers are shit out of luck.
oh no, they can explain it. And banks are not cops, so they don't care where the money came from. If you say you came from drug sales, they'll be okay, no problem.
Like, no problem. We gotta sell you a different insurance now.
No, again, bankers don't care what your job is, folks. All they want to do is to make sure your money's coming, right? And if you can show the steady income, right? So they see every month you deposit $50,000 into your checking account, right?
They're cool with it.
And it's all cash in hundreds, whatever. It's none of their business. Drug cartels buy houses too, folks. Don't
It's very
discriminate.
big picture.
There's a big market in that now too.
Drug cartels?
That's why.
All right, so how much are we borrowing?
144,000.
Yeah.
180, 180,000 minus 37,000.
How else could we calculate 144,000 if we wanted to?
180 times 28.
Compliments, folks, right? If you're putting 20% down, how much is left? 80%, do it by 0.8 if you want. Realize you can always go the other route. Alright? So, what's going to be the monthly payment on our mortgage, folks? What did we do back in chapter 14?
I wasn't here.
You watched the video.
I didn't.
Note that it says mortgage principal and interest per $1,000. So take the amount that you're financing per 1,000, divide that number by 1,000, and then go to your tables. So 6.5%, 30 years. What's the table number?
$6.33.
6.33. So what's 144 times 6.33? 911.
540.
952.
952? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a shade over $900. No biggie, right? That's probably rent anyways. I mean, again, note this is just the mortgage, folks. This does not include the insurance. This does not include, if you've got a homeowners association that's making you put money into it, it's not including that. This is not including taxes. This is not including upkeep, right? I mean, blah, 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 right? This is, blah, blah, blah. Do not be surprised if your true monthly payment for your house is much bigger than that. But this is the starting point, right? This is to pay for the house. All right?
That's depressing.
It is what it is, right? You're buying a house. All right, so this is the one that always makes people cringe. How much interest, pardon me, what will be the finance charge for this house? Assume again that you pay the minimum monthly payment for 30 years. And again, we do this exactly the same way we did the numbers in chapter 14. So, what do I do to figure it out?
Well, 30 years is 360 payments, so you take 360 payments times 911.52.
Alright, so there's your first step. Money going in. 911.52 times 360 payments. That's how much you're going to pay for the financing. Now, how much money did you borrow?
144.
Yeah, please make sure you only subtract the $144,000 that you borrowed. Do not subtract the $180,000 price.
Oh Lord, I ain't gonna buy a house.
Yeah, this is why people don't want to buy a house. Because this number is very, very, very true. How much interest does the bank make over you for 30 years?
$184,147.20. Holy crap. Oh, you got a different number? Maybe I did something wrong?
I have 147 for
47?
Oh, that's better.
No, sorry, it's 184, 100.
147,
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
It should be around $180,000. You should basically have to pay for this house once.
Nice. Maybe I should just build a log cabin and be done with it.
If you don't mind not having running water.
Little house on the prairie.
Dude, you know what's crazy? I just did my rent for 10 years and it took the amount that you wrote up there to borrow. So
Don't.
that's the finance charge.
You would be halfway there.
I'll just wait till my husband died and take it.
You leave that alone. Alright. Alright, so note, folks, this is why buying a house is awfully scary, because you literally will pay that much money in interest. It's just life. Okay? Again, realize that you're spreading this out over 30 years, right? So it's not like you're paying all of that up front. It's just the accumulation of interest over time. And so you know it's going to be up there. How much Oprah has to pay every year. Alright, so technically, folks, how much do we pay for this house? What's its real cost? Again, just in mortgage amount.
I'm scared to think of it.
Technically, there are two ways of doing it. Please do it both ways. Make sure you get the same number. What's the easy way?
Total of all monthly payments plus the down payment.
That's the hard way. What's the easy way?
That's not easy, but
The amount of that.
Price plus finance charge, right? Because you're buying the house for $180,000. What's the extra? That's the interest, right? So there's your interest. It's the finance charge. $180 plus $184, $147.20. That's how much you really pay for your house.
So it's like 6.5%. Is that like a legit?
Yeah. Yeah, I would not be surprised if someone with a mediocre credit score would get slapped with a 6.5% 30-year mortgage right now. Mediocre, right? You could do much better. You could probably find 5.5 if you have a good credit score, and the full 20%.
Well, this is really depressing. I think I'd rather just inherit my mom's house when she dies.
That's not necessarily a bad idea, but this is the way it works, folks. It just costs lots. It's the way it works. Okay. Just have to be ready. Again, note. Note this is another one that I like to point out to students. Right, is making sure you've got this first. Right. That is relatively a big deal. Private mortgage insurance, if you don't put 20% down, you have to take it out. It will literally cost you $500 extra a month in insurance for the frickin' bank, right? And you have to keep paying that until you own 20% of your house. This is why banks don't mind if you don't have the 20% down, because they keep dinging you until you get there, right?
They're making money off of that?
Technically, no. They're making safety insurance money off of it, but theoretically, they're not supposed to be making money off of it. I'll leave it at that. That's as much as I can say. Because I don't know the banking books well enough to know if they actually really do or don't. Because if you default on a loan, folks, the bank is screwed, right? If you owe the bank, $186 some odd $1,000, and you now stop paying them, and the bank now has a house that's a $180,000 house that's probably lost half of its value, they have to write off the difference, right? If they have a $90,000 house and a $180,000 loan, who eats it at that stage? the bank. I mean, your credit sucks because you defaulted on a loan, but you don't have to pay shit back, right? You just say, I'm walking away from this house, I'm done. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, except it hurts your credit score.
But then the person that buys it at auction has to pay the difference, don't they? Because it's considered.
That's what the bank wants them to do. But if the person is clever, they say to the bank,
I'll
and they
take
don't.
it if you don't.
Exactly.
take
If you
that
eat
off.
that money, and that's what the banks have had to be doing, and that's why we had a bunch of default problems going on because banks were stuck having to do that, right?
Okay.
They had $180,000 of money that they thought was coming their way, but now the house is only worth $100,000, and they're like, well, crap, and they can't even sell someone the house to make the difference up, and so they're like, well, what do we do? Right? Well, then they have to find the money somewhere else, and so now they're digging into their own reserves, and eventually they run out of reserves, and if a bank runs out of reserves, then it has to borrow from other banks to cover its reserves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is why the whole banking industry could fall in on itself. Because if they're all borrowing and lending to each other, and nobody has enough money, what happens?
Everyone collapses.
Everything goes down the toilet. And that's what was potentially going to happen back in 2007, 2008. It was a distinct possibility. It would have been interesting to see it happen.
Not so much.
Yeah, except that then we would have to be living in the dark ages again. But it would have been very... But it's also a very distinct possibility. And that's why the government stepped in and said, hey, banks, you have to stop doing crap like this. You need to make sure that Allison can actually pay the $200,000 loan payment that she needs to make, $6,000 a month, in order to actually pay for it, right? And Allison's going, oh no, don't worry about it. I'm gonna get a job soon, right?
Yeah, still
It's like,
no,
no.
it's no problem.
Yeah, I mean there were a lot of interesting loans going on. But the cool part about it is that is this any different than Chapter 14? No, the numbers are just bigger. You have to accept it.
So if it was a 15-year loan, would you pay the same amount of interest though? I mean, like finance, whatever.
Let's do it in 15 years. Why not? Same loan.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
No, that's exactly what I was going to do anyway, except I normally do 25, but 15 is cool because it'll show you the true difference. So we're still buying a $180,000 house, but now we want to only finance it for 15 years. We're still doing 20%. And let's assume that we only have to pay 6.5%. Technically, if you pay the loan off faster, they'll actually lower your interest rate.
What do you mean?
When you get a shorter term loan, the interest rates are actually lower.
Then they get their money
They
sooner.
get their money sooner
Oh,
so
it's
that
not
you're...
like a big of a risk type thing.
It's a less risk.
Yeah.
It's a shorter road.
Yeah, since it's a shorter loan, it's shorter risk, and therefore they will make you pay less interest. So usually there's a good 0.5% difference between a 30-year loan and a 20-year loan. Usually. So 30-year loan would be 6.5, the 20-year would be like 6. 5,
But your monthly
4.
payments are probably higher so that you can pay it off sooner.
Yeah. We'll see the monthly payments.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're putting down 36,000.
We're still putting $36,000 down, and we're still financing the whole $144,000 as well as the last time, right? But now here's where it changes, right? Because now we're going to do this monthly payment in 15 years. But you still go by it the same way, right? I mean, you still say it's per $1,000, so you're going to take $144,000. Divide by 1,000, you're just now going to multiply by the 15-year number instead of the 30-year number. And you'll note that that number is just a little bit bigger.
$144.
Mm-hmm. And so 6.5% for 15 years. So it's 144 times 8.7. What's that?
That is not that bad. That's what I think we're right now.
$1,255.60.
What was that?
$1,255.68.
1255.68. No, it's not that bad, right? I mean, if you think about it, right? Because what was the 30-year loan payment? Like $900?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were thinking it's going to double to $1,800, right? Because you're paying it half the time, so double the
No,
payment,
I was
right?
thinking like 1,500.
But yeah, no, not even, right? And that's purely because you're paying so much more interest each month that the interest that's generating the interest on the interest is much, much less. which is nice, right? That's why you don't have to pay as much. So yeah, you're going to jack your monthly payment up. So now what happens to our finance charge?
Times that by the 1255.68.
Well, 55.68. What do I multiply that by?
180,
Why 180?
15 years, 12 payments a year.
15 years, 12 payments a year, 15 times 12. Right, you're paying it in half the time, so it's not 360 months, only 180. And then don't forget to subtract the amount that you borrowed, the 144. Okay. This is a little bit nicer number, isn't it?
I don't know, I gotta see if I did it right.
What the hell? That can't be right.
What did you guys get? A little bit better now, right?
No, it's
82,000.
22.
22 and 40 cents.
82,000.
$22.40.
Okay, that's it.
That's better.
Notice.
Just
Way better, right, folks? So if you can reduce the number of years that you borrow money, by all means, okay? Now, when we bought our house 20 some years ago, we actually had a choice, right? We were looking at 30-year loan versus 20-year loan. And my wife and I thought we could make the 20-year loan payments, right? We could make the larger monthly payment. But we both looked at it and said, well, okay, but we're cutting it tight every month if we do that, right? So we were a little bit nervous, and so we opted for a 30-year loan, but then what we did every month was instead of paying what the 30-year month mortgage amount was, we paid the 20-year mortgage amount every month. We paid extra, and the cool thing about it is that if you pay a mortgage, if you get a 30-year mortgage and you pay this much every month, guess when the last month is that you pay for the house?
End of 15.
The end of 15 years, right? So you can take out a 30-year mortgage and then just make payments at the 20 or 15-year level, and you will pay it off in that time, right?
Don't you get, oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, don't you get penalized if you
No.
pay more each
No.
month?
No,
Did
they
it
like
ever
it when you
used to
give
be
them
like
money.
It can be. There are some installment loans like these where they'll say penalty for early payments. Those ones, yeah, then it defeats the purpose. But most mortgages through standard banks, if you pay extra, they just reduce your load by a certain amount.
Maybe that's how it was when I owned a house like 20 years ago.
Well, it depends on. There are certain mortgages that if you go through certain agencies that they want to guarantee the interest payments, and so then there's early payment penalties. So usually that if you go through the VA, a lot of times they will force you to pay a fixed amount every month and not be able to pay extra.
So, like, you said, like, refinancing your loan. So, is that like if you're paying the 15-year amount and then you pay it for, like, 10 years and then refinance your own loan so you can do a different loan? Is that-
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, that's totally doable. Basically what happens is that you look at how much you owe in the house and you say, well, I want to refinance this from a 30-year mortgage, which you maybe paid for 10 years, to say just a 10-year mortgage. And so you know that when you do that, the interest rate will drop way down, right? Because a 30-year mortgage will be at 6.5%, whereas a 15 or 10-year mortgage will be down at like 4 or 5.5. And if you can reduce the amount of interest percentage, you also, in theory, pay less.
Are you better off if you have a higher mortgage? Are you better off to try and get a second mortgage to reduce the initial one?
That's tough. Usually
Oh.
not.
Oh,
But it can depend, right? It depends on cases, right? Because what some people do is they borrow the 20% so they don't have to get private mortgage insurance, but then they have to pay interest on the second mortgage and the first mortgage, and
so it kind of evens out.
it tends to even out. It tends not to be much different, but for some people it winds up being a good deal, and you should always look into it if it's possible. Because there's lots of games you can play with this. And there's lots of agencies that are out there to try and help you to get a mortgage that will be as cost effective as
really like kind of like the last segment of the chapters. So you know how we talked about investing? So how we had to calculate how much we needed to invest today to get where we wanted to be in like 5 years. Is that considered income? Like if we were to use that as a down payment?
Yeah. Yeah, because
We're not gonna have, like,
you can't hide that in it. You can't have a down payment be hidden in a tax-free sheltered account. Tax-free sheltered accounts are going to be specific accounts for something other than a house, like education, taxes, house interest, those sorts of things. So usually, down payment on a house is not a tax-free purchase or spending, so they won't give it to you tax-free. All right, so not too bad. All right, so how does it work? Right? Why is my monthly payment $12.55.68 or $9.11.52? How does it work, right? I mean, how is this amount going to make sure that I pay off my loan on the 360th month?
We're just gonna trust that the software embedded in. Know
Yeah.
what it's doing.
How do you amortize a loan? And note, folks, that this process works for any monthly loan, whether it's short-term or long-term. So we're going to do it only here in the mortgage section, but note it works exactly the same way in Chapter 14. It's just that the loans are much shorter and the numbers will look much nicer. In Chapter 15, the numbers will be god-awful, crazy, insane, and it will make you sick when you see how it works. But, which is why you do it, because the effect is hilarious, right? So what I want to do is basically show you what the bank will give you when you buy that $300,000 or $180,000 house. They give you a table that shows you how your payments pay off the house, okay? And that's known as amortizing, right? How to. That's a T, I swear. All right, so the way it works is that there are 4 basic columns. There's the payment column. There's the interest column. And note, folks, that they actually use the word interest here. It's funny that they never say the word interest any other time. Once they've actually sold you the house and sucked you in, and you're signing all of the paperwork away, then they'll actually start using the word interest again. Then it's okay, because you're already, yeah, you're done, right? So, principal paid, and then principal left.
And this is what it looks like when they send you like your monthly thing for your.
Oh no, this when you get your mortgage, they're going to give you a spreadsheet, a 360-line spreadsheet, where it's going to show you what every payment does for every month of your mortgage.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, it's really cool because it's like 6 pages long, right, front and back, and you can just sort of flip through them as you look at them, right? It's just hilarious, right? So, anyways, in the first row just sets up the table, right? You borrowed $144,000, right? So, how much was our monthly payment?
Well,
Let's do this the 36th month, or let's do the 30-year one.
9/11.
9/11/52. Please note, guess what this number is in every row.
That number.
Yeah, don't screw that up on the test. Okay? If your payment's 9/11/52, just write down 9/11/52 as many times as I ask you to. Because that's the same payment every month. Alright? Now, you can always pay more, folks. Please note. Now, interest. Guess how you calculate interest in a mortgage.
I equals PRT.
Yeah, it really is. All this mortgage crap, folks, is based off of I equals freaking PRT. Which is sad, but really cool at the same time, right? It's also why we can actually compute this, right? So we can actually go down here and say, hey, I is equal to PRT. How much do we borrow?
144,000.
144,000. What was our interest rate on that mortgage?
6.5%.
6.5. How am I going to write that?
.065.
Okay, good. 0.065. And now, how long did we borrow the money in that first row?
360 months.
But one row.
1 year.
One row.
One row.
1 month.
1 month.
So
What
it's
does-
1 over
Times 1 over.
1 over 12, right? Because remember, time is always in years, but this represents 1 month, and so 1 month is 1/12 of a year. Okay? This is where it gets fun.
Is that what you call it?
So that number is what you pay towards the interest?
This is the interest that you owe for borrowing that money for 1 month.
$780.
Yes.
Look, she's about to go home and be like, honey, we need to figure this out. and go
You know what?
refinance."
I've already told my husband we need to refinance.
Look at it. I see, when she went, look, she went,
Well, my interest is at like 5% now, and it wasn't like I'm on a floating one, and yeah, we need to refinance. It's a hot mess.
All right, so note, folks, $780 of interest. That's how much you owe the bank in interest for the first month. So you owe $780. Now, your payment, what does it pay first?
Principal.
interest.
No, pays
Always pays the interest first, right? That's what we did back in chapter 10, right? Even when we were doing those little short 30 or 120 day loans, right? We would figure out the interest and say, okay, subtract that from the payment, and whatever's left over, that's what gets subtracted from the principal. This is the same thing, right?
131.52 is all?
Yes, exactly. So take the difference between this. Your payment pays the interest first.
And
So
she's
subtract.
131.52.
What was that, 131.52? So you bought, from that $911.52 payment, $131.52 of house. You probably bought a door.
That's BS.
Nah,
If your doors are
probably
cheap.
more like a
And then
small
maybe
window.
they would, yeah, I was gonna say.
Unless you get that Menards +7.
Or it might be a row of shingles on your roof, right? It might be that.
Well,
Maybe
that's
that's
why people like update their house to make their value of their house more than what they owe on it. Like,
So now, you paid this much on your house, so how much do you owe after you make this payment?
144,000 minus the 911.52. No, minus that.
Yeah. You don't get to minus the whole thing. Remember, most of it had to go to interest.
That's it.
never buying a house.
Oh my
Every month I
God.
pay my car payment, and I do like to see exactly if I pay extra how much in house and I'll pay it off. I could never buy a house. I'd probably do it every month.
This is going to be great, right? Because we bought $130 our house, so our next month is going to be tons better, right, guys?
I don't know.
So how much do we pay next month?
911.52.
$911.52. How do we compute interest?
That minus 0.65.
PRT, except use the new P, just like we did back in chapter 10, right? Anytime we made an early payment, we would reduce the principal and then start using the new principal. Same thing here. So, instead of $144,000, though, right now we're only borrowing $143,868.48 times 0.065 times 1/12. So how much did we have to pay in interest the next month?
779.29.
$779.29. So look how far our interest went down, folks. Isn't that awesome?
You're making me very depressed.
This is the reality of the situation,
I missed
folks.
the number, and at first it said $77.26 and some like numbers, and I was like, damn.
Oh man,
And then I was like, wait, this can't be right.
So you paid an extra 71 cents on your house the next month. So where are we at next month? How much did we actually buy? $132.23. Woohoo! You bought a second door in your house. You only got 7 or 8 more to go. At least you own the door. None of the hardware, mind you, folks. Sorry, it's just a hole. And it's leaned up against the walkway, right? Because you don't have any hinges yet. That's next year. So what are we down to?
$143,736.25.
There you go. That's going to make a difference. Okay, so next month, folks, let's pay extra. Right? Let's make a 15-year mortgage payment. Let's make the $1,255.68. Is that what it was?
I don't know.
1255.68.
Okay, so let's suppose that next month we're like, sweet, we were worried the first couple of months of owning the house that we couldn't afford that $1,255.68, so we didn't pay it. But now we get there and we realize, oh yeah, we can do this, right? We've got the extra money, we can make the extra payments, we can pay this house off sooner.
The tax break applied to them most of them.
All right, so how are you going to figure out how much interest you owe? Rinse and repeat. Just use the new lower number, right? Now, what was our interest this month? 57. Woohoo. Now, nicely enough, how much do we actually buy of our house this month when we make that extra payment, right?
477.
So we're doing those in blue. 477.11. Look at that, folks. Look, you bought 3 doors. You almost own every house in your house.
You might get a garage door.
Yeah, true. You might. That's a
Or
couple
at
of
least
months.
if it's a single garage.
Okay, there you go. I'll take that one. All right, so what are we down to?
957.
Well, we're not to the 2s yet. We only paid 477.
259.14 cents.
So this is going to make a huge difference next month, right? 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 We made that
Looking like
really
it.
big,
It's
humongous
money to make
payment.
another big payment, or even more.
So let's just do one more month, because note that this gets a little tedious after a little while. But imagine doing this 360 times, folks.
So what if you won the lottery and paid like $6,000 on your?
Well, if you won the lottery, I hope you would just buy the whole thing in one
Okay, what if
swoop.
you won like a $10,000 lottery?
Oh, well then you should play better lotteries.
You won it on a scratch off.
I understand. Again, it all works the same way, right? I mean, it's just a bigger number subtracted, that much less the next month. So let's see what that extra $300 payment made. What's our interest in this last month that we're going to look at, right? One more time. Boop. What did it drop down to?
775.99.
Look at that, folks. Humongous difference, right?
$3. $2 and some change.
$2 and some change instead of 70 some cents. Awesome. Amazingly different, right? Yeah, I mean, if you don't look at it too deeply. So one more time, subtract those two. How much do you pay the next month?
479.69.
479.69, right? And so what are we down to after 4 months of payments? Now we finally got into the 142s.
779.45.
45. Oh, good. No, it takes forever, folks. Okay? It just does. All right. Normally, when you do this sort of thing, if you just give me like 2 minutes and then we'll call it a day. Nothing new on the board, but what I can show you is it doesn't take much to set an Excel spreadsheet up to do this yourself.
Also, we get to depress ourselves when we get home too.
Well, if you guys are, learning Excel in a separate class, or you've played around with Excel before and you want to have a chance to try it in something that's real, this is a very classic way to go about trying to do it, right? So here's our $144,000 loan. We're going to pay 911.52. This is D1 times 0.065 divided by 12. That's our interest. This is always A2 minus B2. That's our payment. This is always D1 minus C2. There's how much we owe, right? Make them all a little bit
So
wider.
you essentially could do that. So like, because you know when you go to apply for a mortgage, they say, oh, like you're pre-approved up to like $200,000. And
Yeah.
most people shop for like that amount of house.
Eh.
So
Yeah.
like, when you shop around and each price is different, you can put it in there and see exactly like.
So the idea, right, is that you can then just copy these down forever, right? In theory, change it to money so that it's not too bad. Here you go, every month, going and going, going. Notice that doesn't really look all that friendly, right? There's a year and a half. We got to get to 360.
We definitely need this.
No, does it work out exactly? Here's our 360th payment, right? Really, we shouldn't have paid that much. We actually ended up overpaying by 570 some bucks. It can't be exact, folks. It will be close. Note that your last month will always be the month that evens it out, okay? So this is, note what happens though. What happens to the interest versus the amount you pay, right? In the beginning, where was the interest? It was huge, right? And the actual amount that you bought was almost nothing. As you get towards the end of your loan, it flips, right? So here you start to see that it's not so bad, right? Again, though, it takes a long time to get there. One of the things that I like to show students, what happens if you just raise that number equal to 920? And this equals A2. When do you think you're going to pay off your loan if you just pay 920 bucks? All you did was rounded it up, right? 360 months is what it should be taking. Notice how many less months we pay. That's
So what happens to
10
the
months.
money that you pay over? Like, do they give it back to you? Or do they like?
No, you just buy your house 10 months earlier.
No, I mean like
The
your,
loan
your
stops.
last
Yeah,
payment.
it just
You
stops.
said
Oh,
that your
the last payment, they'll only charge you the interest plus the amount that's due. So you don't write them a check for 920 bucks. You'll write them a check for $477.97 plus the $2.59 you owe in interest.
And then it zeroes out.
Yeah.
I would just write the amount and wait for it to come in and be like,
Yep.
"Surprise."
But then you also have to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork to actually get the house transferred into your property after you buy it yourself, right? So once you're done paying the mortgage, technically you still don't own your house until you go to the bank and have them transfer the rights of the house from the bank to you. Yeah, there's a lien on it forever, right? And until you clear the lien, it's still not really your house, right? Now, one last thing, and then I'll let you guys
So
go.
something like DMV for houses.
Yeah, the title company.
Yep.
So like when you sell a house, they always ask if you have a lien on it.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, because if you have a lien on it, or if someone else has a lien on it,
So
then
there's
Oh,
an
yeah.
organization of like everybody who owns a house is like titles to it.
no, there's a title company that actually tracks titles on houses.
Yeah.
Oh.
One of the things you have to do when you buy the house is make sure that when they transfer the title that you're not absorbing someone else's mortgage, right? So what happens, folks, if you pay an extra $1 per month? Just $1.
Probably goes to his interest.
Yeah, but every month you just, how many years do you think you're going to pay less if you put an extra $1 down? So starting at $9.12, then go to $9.13, $9.14, $9.50, just an extra buck.
Couple of years at least.
Couple years?
Maybe like 6 months.
6 months? This one's always fun. $1, folks. You will pay your mortgage off in 270 months. You pay 90 months less. 90 months less from $1 extra per month.
So do you have a running sheet on your computer?
Oh, hell yeah, of course.
I feel like you're like, I paid $3 extra.
Yes, of course,
I
right?
paid it off 2 months earlier.
No, that was actually one of the things that when I bought our house, my wife and I. She was 29, I was 30 when we bought our house, and I told her that we're going to own this house before you're 50, right? Last year, that's what I did. I gave my wife the deed to the house. It said, it's yours now. That was her birthday present.
You're so sweet.
Yeah. And she's not even 50. She doesn't turn 50 till next year. So I gave my wife a house for her 50th birthday. So she should just shut up if she says I
For the
don't
rest
buy
of
her
her life.
presents, right?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Well, and
All
you
right.
already own a house, so like, you know, it's like a double birthday present.
Oh, and I do have your tests, folks. Monroe people, they should have it somewhere over there as well. If you'd like to go get your tests, that's fine. So, if you would. Okay, cool.
Rather not.
That was a depressing test.
I already looked at my grade.
I want to see what that problem.
Yeah, it wasn't always.
So how does mortgages apply to like business applications? I feel like this class is more like personal department.
Personal depression.
Well, businesses have to take out mortgages.
You know what I mean? Because we talk about credit cards.
You don't think
investing.
businesses have to take out loans?
So like they take out mortgages?
Yeah.
Oh,
For their-
so it basically
for their
applies to
property.
like businesses just
Yes.
like this.
Unless they're
I
leasing
see
it.
it, I see
They're
it.
totally the same, folks.
I thought they were just like holding.
Jason.
They had
That's,
Somebody has.
that's my old paper down there.
I was like, oh, I have $2 in my savings account. Amazing. I have 82.3% interest on it.
Take this stuff too. Steve, take this too.
Don't use
Casey, take that
painful
too.
formulas.
Yeah, it's just. How can I do so well on the hard ones and then do so crappy on the test?
Alright.
My boat's running off.
Alright, now.
Wait, where's mine?
Oh, do you want yours?
You would think there'd be some kind of.
Well, of course she does. She did better in the rest.
I do not understand.
That's you.
Damn, math that great?
This doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, the homework is always so easy compared to the.
I know.
Oh, Amy.
Mm-hmm. I'll see you next week.
Alright. Oh, crap. Camera.